What's up, everybody? This is CT, and you're listening to Mega Talks, Episode 9. My next guest, he was born in South Korea. He was associated with the military, so he moved all around before settling here in Arkansas. And in 1993, he became a graduate of Whitehall High School before moving on to radio in 1994. If you listen to the radio stations in Central Arkansas, you've heard his work, starting off with Magic 105, Kissin' Radio, and 103.7 The Buzz. And I listened to him for several years on the morning shows. Finally, around the year 2001, 2002, I was asked to come on his radio station, 103.7 The Buzz, as a musical guest in support of my debut CD release, version 1.0. He's a super fun, super entertaining guy, and once you meet him, he's a friend for life. If you haven't guessed his name yet, his name is Joe Crofford. Alright, this is CT with Mega Talks. I'm here with Joe Crofford, and as many know, if you've ever listened to the radio or been around in Arkansas, you should know who he is. If you don't, sit back and listen, and you'll find out a whole lot more. And earn yourself a friend. Alright. First question, let's kick it off and just ask you about, I know you wasn't born in Arkansas. How do you came to be a resident here in Arkansas?
I actually was born in South Korea, and my father, who was in service at the time, met my mother over there, and we just kind of migrated over here. I think I was 2 years old when I first came to America, and my father eventually retired in 1984. Prior to that, we were just kind of, just a military brat, just went all over the country, and then we settled in Arkansas. He retired at the Pine Bluff Arsenal in the mid 80s, and I just continued my school and graduated from Whitehall.
Cool. And you graduated around, I guess it's 1993?
1993, yeah.
Cool. And was your first job in doing radio after graduation, or was it?
Well, actually, I started out, I was working for a movie theater when I was 14. Okay. Wasn't getting paid at the time, but I would get to watch free movies. And then I kind of just learned my way around, got a work permit, and worked some manager shifts. And then when I was 17, I got a job at Blockbuster Video in Jefferson Square in Pine Bluff. I was a key holder, and then eventually worked my way to an assistant manager. That was between my junior and senior year. And then shortly after graduating high school, within probably less than a year, met Tommy Smith while I was managing a movie theater in Little Rock. Oh, yeah. And he invited me up to the show, and then, everything clicked, and I started doing crazy, outrageous stunts, and just built my name and reputation from that.
And that was with Magic 105?
Magic 105, yep. Uh-huh. The Rock and Roll Breakfast.
Oh, yeah. When he invited you to the show, were you nervous? What did you think? Or did you have anything prepared? Or you just...
The funny thing, the very first time he actually invited me up, I thought he was just being nice. He was doing a radio promotion at the movie theater, and I was like, he's just being nice, blah, blah, blah. Came back and did another screening, the radio station sponsored screening. Yeah. And he said, "Hey, I thought you were going to come up." And when he said that, I was like, "Oh, he must be serious." So I went up there, and the very first time I was on the radio, at the time, Big Dave was his co-host. Mm-hmm. He was off that day. Michael P. wasn't there, who did the news. and it was just me and Tommy Smith. And so
Wow.
we kind of clicked. And then he invited me more, and they started paying me for stunts.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually got on payroll, and it was really cool. You got to think I was like 18,
Yeah.
19 years old, and I was living the top of the world.
So before that, have you ever had any in mind or I guess a goal about doing radio or producing or anything?
To be honest with you, I didn't. I actually was working on, just being, a manager, making good money, and possibly eventually going to school.
Mm-hmm.
But radio had never crossed my mind. Now, I did, anybody that knows me from my childhood days knows that, I was always a class clown, very vocal, boisterous. I took drama and, was always, the class clown, basically, the life of the party. So it kind of, a lot of people will say, we always figured you do something, with, your loud mouth. And so radio was really kind of my calling. But at the time, I would have never thought that I would have had a career in radio.
Yeah. Did you find any difficulty in being on the radio as opposed to like television? Because, on the radio, you really have to talk things through because there's no visual.
I find it being easier on radio. Now, I do have a lot of TV work, but, I'm not a shy person. I've never met a stranger. I can go up to talk to anybody at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between TV and radio, TV, you have what they call a hard time. You have to be done at an exact precise moment. Whereas radio, you kind of can just float around that, that time.
Yeah.
TV, everything is hard time. You have exactly, 3
28 and a half
minutes
seconds or whatever.
Exactly. Whatever, 3 minutes worth of commercials. You have to get all that stuff in. There's no room for error. That's why it's really important to have producers and EPs and just directors. They're the ones that will give you countdowns in your IFB. In radio, you just kind of make it up as you go. Radio is fun because I'm going to tell you right now, I do not have a face for TV, even though I'm on TV a lot. Radio was my calling because, I could say anything and do anything and paint a elaborate picture for just about anybody and they would believe it.
Now, how did some of the other personalities like Michael P. and them react to you after you got like a standing gig? They feel
everybody was great. At the time, I guess my role kind of was like the Bud Melman role from David Letterman. I was kind of like the guy that, hey, David Letterman would tell Bud Melman to go do something and he would do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the skit kind of, began, where Tommy would tell me to do something and I'd go do it. And then we would go into, doing things that were just outlandish. But at the time, the mid-90s with the Rock and Roll Breakfast, we didn't really, we really pushed the boundaries. We didn't really have a set of rules. There were things that you absolutely could not do on radio. And then the other things, we just kind of pressed the buttons. There were certain things, you could, obviously, we would refer to a person, as a dick. And as long as we didn't refer it to a male body part, it was okay. And then same thing with, and I don't want to offend any of your listeners or anything, but, the same thing with the female anatomy. Yeah. As long as you didn't refer it to that, you could call, a guy, the P word and get away with that. Theoretically, you could say GD and get away with it because it's not one of the words that, is banned from TV or radio. The philosophy is you go to George Carlin's, 7 words you can't say on TV. Those are pretty much the words you cannot say on radio or any forms of that particular word. And so we stayed away from that. And of course, we had one person that worked on the show in the later years. He would say GD because, he would hear one of the other personalities that would do it, in the market. And so, again, you can say it, but I would, stray away from it because you're in the Bible Belt, and that's just something you don't do in radio.
Yeah, I remember listening to the radio during those days, and you guys definitely
All
pushed the
same.
limits.
I mean, oh yeah, we absolutely pushed the limits, you know. And then, you know, one of the greatest bits is that, you know, the Flash Me Fridays, and we would, you know, sign female body parts. I mean, it was the 90s will never happen again. I mean, it was just one of those period of times that we could get away with all this. And, you know, honestly, had not been for the Janet Jackson Super Bowl incident, it probably would still continue.
Now, did you guys ever have in-studio guests like from the bands that were toured through Little Rock?
Oh, absolutely.
Like on the Flash Me Fridays and things like that?
You know, we would have, you're talking about like the rock bands that would come through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would come through, and then obviously we would always have guests on the phone. And, you know, one of the funniest interviews we ever had was with the actor James Caan, which is best known for, you know, The Godfather and, you know, Sonny from Godfather. But he was promoting a show called Las Vegas. We were talking about it may have been the early 2000s. It was either late 90s or early 2000s. Niagara was like a very, very big drink that came out of Arkansas. Yeah. Where they even sent Julia Roberts and some Hollywood producers to come down to research it, and it was about this this drink that was really kind of like an aphrodisiac for women. Yeah. All it was just a bunch of sugar, you know. But anyway, we're talking about that, and we're talking about Viagra. And James Caan is talking to his wife. He says, hey, Linda, hey, listen to these guys from Arkansas. They're on the radio talking about Viagra. And so, you know, we would really, really push things. Now, there were certain celebrities that, you know, obviously we knew we could not, you know, go around there. I mean, but then there were some people you just kind of, you know, work your way in. It's like, oh, yeah, he's cool or she's cool with it, and we'll go with it. You know, we had Catherine Bell, who was best known for the TV show Jag. And I think the only film that she probably was big, you know, largely known for was Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey. She was the female anchor. And so she calls in, and we're kind of having fun because, you know, we did some research. I believe IMDb said that she spoke Farsi. Well, I had no idea what Farsi was. And so we got her talking to us dirty in Farsi. And so, you know, we just kind of, you know, every guest is completely different. Yeah. And so you just took that guest and you just kind of see, you know, where they're going to go, you know, what you can and can't get away with, what they're willing to say, what they're willing to talk about. And then you just kind of, you know, play with it and, you know, go for it. And then sometimes you get some of the greatest interviews. I mean, like I said, the James Caan one is always the one that sticks with my mind. Sylvester Stallone. All the professional wrestlers were great.
Did you ever have Sting in there?
We did have Sting, and you know, the wrestler Sting, and we talked mostly about you know, his NWA career, even though he's promoting TNA, because you know he obviously was best known for a match in 1988, I think, where he wrestled Ric Flair to a 60-minute time limit draw, and obviously Rick has always said, you know, him and Sting, you know, had some of the best matches, you know. And so my relationship with a lot of the wrestlers began with Jimmy Hart.
Nice.
And I kind of, you know, just really, you know, from a wrestling fan's point of view, had that opportunity to get into the ring and actually do a radio promotion and actually wrestle in the ring with Jimmy Hart on a couple occasions. And I'd like to go ahead and mention I am undefeated. I have a winning record in my professional wrestling career. But
against a stout opponent.
That's right. But, you know, somewhere in the wrestling history books, it will say Danny Joe Crawford 2-0. And so, you know, meeting Jimmy Hart, him knowing that I'm a big fan and just was really kind of a student of professional wrestling. And yes, I know that it's scripted and it's not real. But I have had a chance to become friends with a lot of wrestlers.
Oh, yeah. The moves are like still
Jerry
real.
Lawler, with Ric Flair, you know, Hulk Hogan, all your big names. And so, you know, from a fan standpoint and from a professional standpoint, Knowing Jimmy Hart has been, probably one of the absolute top 10 moments in my radio career.
Wow, that's cool. And that was all kind of Magic 105. What the differences between like the 105 days and the transition to 103.7?
Okay, well, a lot of people may not know this, but I actually left Magic 105 in November of 2001 because David Basil had got a hosting gig with a guy named Stanley Knox, and they paired us up with Louisa Drouet, and we started a morning show on 103.7 The Buzz. Now, this is before it was sports talk.
Yeah.
This was just talk radio. And, David gave me that opportunity, and, it was a great opportunity both professionally and financially. And so I left 105, but, I didn't really get along with the co-host Stanley Knox, and had some difference of opinion. And so I left and came back to 105. But when, obviously Tommy Smith and I had gotten fired in 2004, and he came to 103.7 The Buzz in December. And then I think I came like 2 years later. The dynamics of radio had changed. And like I said,
for sure.
There was no more, pushing the envelope, no more sex talk, no more adult oriented shows. It was really, primarily sports, and then, entertainment side.
Mm-hmm.
The show itself, is the basis of the Rock and Roll Breakfast, just without the boundary limits. We just kind of really just talked about, sports, and we still did the Bay bracket, and we still did, best fried chicken, best pizza, all these best ofs. But the show content was so different than it was at 105. And I'll be honest with you, I'll never get those days back, but the years that I was at Magic 105, it will never be replicated. It was the best years of my life in my professional career. And, not to say anything bad about the Buzz or anything. It's just, radio was just different.
Yeah, there were two different dynamics.
Yeah. It was even different. When you were on our show back in 2002, on the Morning Buzz with Basil, me, Louisa, and Stanley, we tried different things. We invited musical guests. There was a lot of things. That was because we were trying to gain listeners, and obviously our number one opponent at the time was Tommy Smith and the Rock and Roll Breakfast on 105.
Yeah.
So we tried a lot of different things, but once 105 kind of ceased to exist and the Buzz got all the big name talent in town, radio completely changed, because there wasn't a need for anybody to push the envelope. There wasn't a need to, do, experimental things. One of the people, and I'm very, very good friends with, is Pool Boy. He started his career as similar to me, where he was a stunt boy, and he did a lot of things on the Heather and DC show. And eventually when DC left, he was able to maneuver himself into the hosting position with Heather. And so, but those days are kind of gone, because even right now they have a guy named Moose that kind of does, what Pool Boy used to do and what I used to do. He really doesn't, push the boundaries. They just kind of, they have him go out and do things, and do questions, but nothing like burying a mannequin or making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and trying to check out. Or driving around in a station vehicle to drive through with, completely naked woman, things like that.
Now you did you were the strictly producing when you was at 103.7. Was that your main role?
The owners frown upon that.
What'd you say?
And so the owners frown upon it because the FCC frowns upon it. So the owners frown upon it. So your GMs, they don't want to take any risks and things like that. Radio is not as fun as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you have a competition of the internet.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And everybody's doing, podcasts. Everybody's doing, YouTube videos. I mean, it's just, I mean, the dynamics of radio has changed because I'll be honest with you. When I have satellite radio, I'm listening to Howard Stern. I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't have to listen to those commercials except for the things that he endorsed, like the Squatty Potty. I got a Squatty Potty and I don't even use it. I got it because Howard Stern endorsed it, and my wife uses it.
Uh-huh. Now, do you think this has anything to do with like the FCC debacle today?
Oh, absolutely. Stern was the guy who basically reinvented radio. You look at Howard Stern's numbers, okay? He has millions of people that listen to him. And here's the thing, okay? I remember listening to him the first day he went on the air, and he got all the cuss words out. Be honest with you, you listen to him now, it's everybody else on the show that's cussing. It's not Howard Stern because he doesn't have to, because he knows if he wants to say a cuss word, he can say it. It's no big deal, okay? Because it's satellite radio. But, there's not a need. The great thing about satellite radio, and he actually envisioned this, okay, is he doesn't have to do these 5-minute commercial blocks 4 times an hour.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
You have, Squatty Potty that endorses him, whatever, millions of dollars. And he talks about it during a show. And then every now and then when he wants to take a break, from talking, he'll hit some buttons on the control board and it'll run a commercial that he's doing. So you're still listening to him. He's just not, live. He's talking about, Squatty Potty.
Yeah.
And
I think that
that's the
opens
first
up
thing that comes to my mind.
yeah, and I think that it kind of opens up the market for people, and the market's it's wide open for anybody. Any one of your entrepreneurs, that's smaller businesses to larger businesses, because it reminds me of the days when people would go on and they would secretly broadcast shows like back in the 50s or 60s or whatever, illegally, against the FCC regulations. And it kind of compared to today. And that's what it reminds me of anyway.
Right. Well, here's the smartest thing about terrestrial radio. 103.7 The Buzz actually is the smartest people because they do talk shows. Here's the thing. If I want to listen to music, who's listening to the radio? I mean, they have
nobody.
Spotify, they have Pandora, they have Apple Music, they have, all types of MP3 players. There's not a single phone that's made today that doesn't have the ability to play music. Yeah. I mean, everything is streaming. You don't even have to go to the store, to the record store, to buy a physical album or a CD or whatever. All you have to do is go on your phone and then purchase it, and then it's downloaded straight to your phone. The need for music, and listen, I mean, I still listen to the radio, but, my kids will say in the morning, I'm listening to talk radio. I'm listening when, Tommy's on the air. When it goes into commercial, I'm listening to Heather and Pool Boy. When it goes into songs, I'm listening to, another radio station, whatever the stations may be. And that's how I do it. Now, I mean, obviously my kids, like my little one, he listens to music all the time, but unless he has that MP3 player of that phone, he's not listening to the radio. My oldest son, who I take to school every day, he's got his phone and he's got some wireless headphones and he listens to music. He listens to what he wants to. Yeah. So talk radio is the future. Yeah, talk radio is the future for terrestrial radio. And Howard Stern is just so, in the front of it that he's dominant. I mean, he makes $100 million a year to talk 3 days a week.
And he's done it forever.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Stern, keeps making serious millions and millions of dollars. So all Stern does is work. He makes his hours shorter. I think he started off working 4 days a week. Like I think it was a Monday, Tuesday, and a Thursday and Friday. And now he works 3 days a week. A Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are the live shows. I mean, he basically he calls his shots and makes a schedule. And then if you miss his show live, guess what? Howard 100, that show runs all day. And then on the off day, it's playing other shows. I mean, so he's constantly on the radio 24/7. And that's why he's the #1 radio DJ.
Did you ever DJ like for music or anything, or was it just?
I did. When I was at Magic 105, I did some air shifts and, spun records. I'll tell you this. When I first started, I, observed everything and I wanted to do things, and Tommy gave me more and more and more freedom. At nighttime, Jeff Allen, I would come in really early, before the shift. Jeff Allen was doing overnights over at Magic 105, and he'd let me, pull the carts and, basically press the buttons, When I started in radio, they still had reel-to-reel. They still had cart decks, and cart decks looked like 8-track player. I mean, it's the easiest way I can describe it. And there wasn't a huge catalog of music that was on CDs. I mean, I still used the turntable. Now, as, Magic 105 was like one of the last radio stations that went all digital, and they still didn't have like a gigantic collection of CDs. I mean, a lot of it was still on carts and vinyl. Now, once we went into the Clear Channel building where the old Sam's Club on Colonel Glenn was, everything was computerized. And when it became a computer filled environment, that changed radio, because you have so many shows, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but a lot of the shows that you hear in local radio here in Central Arkansas, they're not live. Yeah, it's computers, right? I mean,
I remember when you guys told me that, and I was shocked.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it's like I have a very, very good friend, Ashley, that does Kissing, okay? Well, she's not even in Little Rock when she does the show. She does it out of Fayetteville, and she's also broadcasting in several other markets. All that's pre-recorded. So, and then, my thing is, and Tommy taught me this a long time ago, I hated Memorex and anything, and we called Memorex and it because Memorex was a tape company. Obviously. To go live is the greatest feeling in the world when you're in broadcasting, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you got to understand. When I started, there was not a delay button. I mean, everything was live. I mean, if somebody got through and said, the F word, guess what? It went over the air.
Yeah, you just sweated it out.
Right. And now we were the first station in town that got a 7-second delay, and which, we needed it, to be honest. But, still we were a live show. We were just 7 seconds, delayed from the live, broadcast.
Now there's an engineer that would specifically work the delay?
No. There's a button you press. And it basically drags out your what you're saying for 7 seconds, or you would just hear dead air. Yeah. Depending on what we worked with multiple delay buttons, but sometimes I'll tell you this: if you're listening to a radio station and you hear, sometimes you listen to, let's just say I'm going to throw out Bob Robbins. Okay, you do Bob Robbins. You hear his commercial. Okay, but sometimes that commercial sounds like it's sped up or slowed down, and it doesn't, sound like that it's his voice. It's because the computer is trying to compensate for the time that it has to fill.
Oh, okay.
The 7-second delay kind of works in a similar manner, where it basically, it either puts a dead air space for 7 seconds, or it'll drag out some of the audio for it to fill the 7 seconds.
So it kind of scrambles things, but it's got to catch the timing back.
Right. But most people aren't going to notice it. It's not going to be a massive, notice, so.
Did you have somebody assigned to work the button, or was it just,
Oh, no, it was basically anybody that could hit the button. As soon as something happened, anybody could hit the button the fastest.
Oh, yeah. I always wondered about that, how the button worked, if it was somebody just specifically waiting.
The bad thing about it is, I'll tell you this, and if any of your listeners hear this, and these people will hate me if I say this, but if you call consecutively, because the 7 seconds still has to refresh, okay? Because it has to gain back the 7 seconds. So when you hit that delay button, you're going to lose a few seconds. If you hit it again, you're going to lose a few more seconds. But then maybe the third or fourth time when you hit that button again, it hadn't refreshed, so you don't get that delay. So if you go and call somebody and that, and you get through consecutively, and you keep dropping F-bombs, guess what?
Some of them getting through.
Some of them's going to get through.
I remember some occasions where the air would just go dead, you know.
And that's the delay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. All right. And I'm going back to the spinning DJ. That was something that I've done online, his DJ online, but never done it in the studio. And you said 105 was one of the last to go all digital.
Right.
When you were in there, when you run the tapes, the I don't know what you call them. They look like the 8 tracks.
Oh yeah, the cards.
Yeah. Now, how exactly did those things work? What was inside them?
It's actual tape. It's like, I mean, it is identical to an 8-track tape. It's identical to an 8-track tape. The best way that I can tell you, okay, let's just say you got
was it like a single inside or a whole album?
Yeah. No. It's just a single. It's just that one song.
Uh-huh.
It's that one song that it will play when it finishes playing. A light will shine. You pull it out, and it's basically ready to play again. I mean, it's it's basically a cassette. Ideally, it's a cassette that never needs to be rewound.
Yeah, because I've seen them work, but I didn't know exactly, what was on them or how they worked or how you crossfade between tracks. Because I know when I listened to the radio, those guys had that stuff down. They would talk through the intro, 10 seconds or whatever, and straight to lyrics.
That's called hitting the post. So when there's a long intro to a song, and then the music the actual vocals, you start hearing the vocals.
Yeah.
There's a point, you call that the post, and DJs would talk right up to it, and basically say, something like, well, that was Walk This Way by Aerosmith. Coming up next is, Steve Miller Band, The Joker, right here on Magic 105, KMJX, Conway, Little Rock, boom, and then they start talking, and then the actual song would start.
Yeah.
As far as the vocals, that would be called hitting the post.
Okay. Now, did you have the liberty to play like alternatives to the song or instrumentals to a song or anything like that, or did you have a specific playlist when you came in?
Okay, so a program director sometimes have a music director, but a program director will program the songs in the rotation. And so here's the thing about radio. Songs that get in rotation, there's a reason why you'll hear a popular song, once every hour.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I lost you.
So sorry about that.
That's all right.
Okay, so I just lost you on the highway. They would have these group sessions, and they would ask you to, you would have a list of like 500 songs, and you would say if you liked it, you didn't, whatever, and those surveys kind of helped form the log. And like I said, great programmers like Tom Wood knows, what music, is, resonates with people. But there's always going to be a song, and the best example is there was a group back in 1987. There was a guy that requested it on Tom Wood's Brown Bagger Request Hour every day. Okay, Tom didn't have it. Didn't have the song. The guy brought it to him. Okay, and Tom played it, and then it became such a big hit. And every day it got requested because, again, it was a song from a band that hardly anybody knew, but the album had been out for a while. Yeah. It was "Sweet Child of Mine" off of Guns N' Roses' "Appetite for Destruction."
That makes sense.
Yeah, see, because here's the funny thing. That album came out in 1987.
Yeah, it was out for a couple of years.
It had been out for a while before it got any recognition. "Welcome to the Jungle" didn't even get recognized as a single the very first time it got released. A lot of people started hearing the song when Clint Eastwood's The Deadpool came out, which was a Dirty Harry sequel, came out in 1989. So the album had been out for about 2 years before that song became a big hit.
Yeah.
And so when they re-released the single, everybody knew what the song was, and it's one of their biggest songs. But a guy, and I can't remember the guy's name, used to call in, told Tom, he's requesting "Sweet Child of Mine, Sweet Child of Mine." Eventually, guy brought it up there. Tom plays it. Boom, the rest is history. And "Sweet Child of Mine" becomes one of Guns N' Roses' biggest hits because radio stations started playing that song from a band that nobody ever heard of.
And that's cool. That guy kind of brought it to radio, in Arkansas.
Yep.
But I remember that seeing that album cover, and the first thing I thought of when I saw it, and people had it, and I was thinking, man, this is old, because I think I remember seeing something like this. It just I
Yeah.
didn't listen to it. You know,
Yep.
until you saw the videos, that it was like, man, this band is crazy.
Yep.
Now you went and saw Guns N' Roses the last tour, didn't you?
I did. I saw Guns N' Roses 4 or 5 times on this last tour, and then I saw Axl Rose be the lead vocalist for AC/DC. Matter of fact, last year, AC/DC is my favorite rock band.
Yeah.
And last year I had the privilege of seeing the second to the last show with Brian Johnson on the Rocker Bus tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then in September, I saw the same tour with Axl Rose. So getting a chance to see your favorite band with 2 different lead singers on the same tour is pretty unique.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what did you think about early Guns N' Roses concert versus I guess the Guns N' Roses of the millennium, I guess you'd say?
Well, I will tell you this. I was very, very privileged to see Guns N' Roses back in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
Their 91-92 was the Use Your Illusion tour. Saw it at the Pyramid in Memphis. It was complete chaos. I remember Guns N' Roses didn't hit the stage until like
2 hours later.
Midnight. It may have been midnight when they hit the stage. But you know, just they were the world's most dangerous band. They were notorious for being on stage late. They were notorious for canceling gigs, but they were true. They are the last hair band. They're the last true heavy metal band, and they're truly a rock band. I mean, it was about as dangerous as you could get at the time. The Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I remember that. You talk about the AC/DC.
Yeah.
What did you think about him? Do you think people more compare him to Johnson, or do you think he stands alone? Axl stands alone as the singer for what he brings to the table. Because I know it's hard to listen to him without saying, well, he doesn't sound like him, or he sounds like this, or what were your thoughts?
Okay, here's my thoughts on Axl Rose with AC/DC. Axl does a fantastic job with the Bon Scott songs. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Bon Scott was actually the second lead vocalist for AC/DC.
Mm-hmm.
And, obviously, he, when he died, I mean, Highway to Hell was, right there on the cusp of superstardom. I mean, that was the song. Now, they had written the songs for Back in Black, and obviously, Bon had died, and Brian Johnson came in, gave that raspy voice. And to be honest with you, AC/DC will always be to me Brian Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
But, I understand, with his hearing and, him to go deaf, permanently, they had to make a change. Yeah. Axl was brought in because Axl was a huge fan. He knew the words to the songs. His Bon Scott songs sound really great. So when you go and look at the set list, the majority of the songs, besides the songs that has to be played, You Shook Me All Night Long has to be played, Hell's Bells, Back in Black, mostly your Back in Black songs have to be played. The majority of the set list are the Bon Scott songs, and he will pull out, a whole lot of Rosie, which he does a fantastic job. He does a great job on Highway to Hell. He does a great job on TNT. He absolutely is a great vocalist. Probably one of the top 5 rock and roll vocalists. His range is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But, he is still, going to be Guns N' Roses vocalist. And, it doesn't matter if he goes on tour with AC/DC again in 5 years or 4 years or whatever. Brian Johnson is the face of AC/DC with anger. Yeah. I mean, because for 36 years, he was the voice of AC/DC longer than any other vocalist.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel, because when I first heard, start listening to AC/DC, it was with Johnson. I mean, for the majority. I heard some of the older songs, but I didn't know there were 2 singers, and I was like, man, he sounds completely different.
Right. But, Brian Johnson does a great job of Highway to Hell. He does a great job of Whole Lot of Rosie. I mean, he does a great job of Let There Be Rock. I mean, they're just different styles. But Axl Rose is a superstar. I mean, he is a great frontman. And I don't think if you're going to go with a named frontman, somebody with name recognition, I don't know if there's anybody else other than Axl could pull it off.
Yeah. As far as like different types of singers, what did you think about like Van Halen coming through with 3 different types of singers compared to like an AC/DC or something?
Well, I know people will hate me when I say this, but I am a Van Hagar fan versus a Van Halen. I've seen David Lee Roth as a solo artist. I saw David Lee Roth when they did the reunion tour. I never saw Diamond Dave with Van Halen when they were, with Jump and Hot for Teacher in Panama in their prime.
Yeah, I didn't.
But I'll tell you this: Sammy Hagar is a great frontman. Sammy Hagar, the Van Hagar years, they had the bigger hits, and so Sammy Hagar to me will always be, Van Halen. But that's just because I grew up with them. Now, a lot of people that are older than me, they will say no way because they grew up with Diamond Dave.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, I saw him when he's toured solo for Skyscraper. I think it was maybe 87, 88, something like that. And I mean, he's a great performer, but I didn't think his voice was that great. And then I saw him when they did the reunion tour for Van Halen, and I was like, yeah, I didn't really like him, you know. And
I kind of think he kind of laid back with that reunion tour too. He wasn't 100%.
Right. And here's the thing. I mean, there's so many songs that Sammy Hagar does that I love that, David Lee Roth does not do. So at least Sammy Hagar plays Jump. He plays Hot for Teacher. He plays Panama, and does that. But, David Lee Roth can't do it.
No. It doesn't work the other way.
Right.
All right. And I know you're traveling right now, so I'm going to wind it down. I'm going to do a little bit of throw you some questions out there, some little rapid fire, and tell me what you think.
Okay.
But I know you talked about if anything that you wanted to do is make a difference. Do you think you're making a difference? And do you think how will you continue to make a difference?
I think I do. I have worked for numerous charities. I've volunteered for dang near almost every charity at one point or another. I sat as the media chair for the American Cancer Society, and I know I helped raise a ton of money through the magic years. And Tommy Smith gets credit for that. But, I mean, we raised, millions of dollars through the Billboard, the Living Billboard campaign. On my own, I mean, obviously those numbers, are not, as high. But, I continue to do my charitable duties, with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I have an annual lip sync battle that takes place, and it's got a new home, it finally got a home now with the Robinson Center, and it takes place in August before the football season. And the proceeds go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and actually Make-A-Wish Mid-South. So it helps grant wishes here in Arkansas. I think I do still make a difference because, I kind of help coordinate, all your radio and TV personalities, or as many as possible, to come together and, whether it's a celebrity waiter event, or the lip sync battle, or some of my other dumb ideas that I've done.
They're all great ideas.
On paper. One year we did a Dude Looks Like a Lady promotion for the American Cancer Society where I got Tommy Smith, Bob Robbins, Roger Scott, Chris Kane, and a couple other people to dress in drag. Now, I will tell you that it takes a lot for, these manly men to, dress up in women's lingerie and dresses.
And did you get Basil?
Yeah, no, Basil couldn't do it. He wasn't going to do it. He's too free in himself. But no, seriously, Basil's really an overcommitted guy.
Yeah.
And I believe, if memory serves me correct, he had a conflict with dates. But I'll tell you right now, Basil's a go-getter and had he had the opportunity to do it, with a free calendar, he would have been there. And so, I mean, listen, I got the, a man among men, Bob Robbins. I mean, he's about as country as you can get. I got him to dress in a dress, okay? I mean, dress and drag. I mean, that's a pretty tall order. If I can get Bob Robbins to do it, I can get anybody to do it.
Oh, for sure.
And it's for a great cause.
Yeah, so, and is there a website that they can go to, a good website if people want to go through and donate? Or
to see those pictures?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think those pictures ever got posted publicly. I think those pictures only exist for the people that were actually participating, or if anybody that was there that took a picture. Now, I do know that former governor and First Lady, Mr. and Mrs. Beebe, was there in attendance, and I believe that she has evidence that took place.
Cool. All right, I got a few more for you. And we'll do top 3 instead of top 5 just for sake of time. What's your top 3 all-time movies?
Top 3 all-time movies?
Yeah, because I know you start off with the movies. You like going to the movies a lot.
And I love going to movies. I'll be honest with you, that would be hard because it's really, broken down in categories, horror, action, comedy. I'll tell you this, one of my all-time favorite movies is Quentin Tarantino's first film that he directed, Reservoir Dogs. I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino fan. I'll watch anything he does.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing with Kevin Smith. But if I was to pick 3, I would say Reservoir Dogs, I would say The Dark Knight, and I would say, oh, man, that's putting me on the spot on there. Man, I mean, it would probably be The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
That's the Star Wars film that I've seen the most.
Yeah. Now, that kind of knocks out, too, because I was going to ask you what your best Star Wars episode was.
Well, I'll tell you right now, The Empire Strikes Back is the best Star Wars film, but The Last Jedi is a pretty close second.
Yeah. I just watched that last night. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty close second because they do a lot of things in that film that have not been done. One, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but the one scene with the Vice Admiral when she goes into hyperspace, that had never been done. Yeah. That scene was incredible. I'll be honest with you. Everything with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is just a complete badass.
Yeah.
And I mean, he is just the scenes. When your listeners go and see The Last Jedi. Just know Luke Skywalker is he's badass.
Oh, yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi ain't got nothing on Luke Skywalker.
All right. What are your top 3 concerts? Whether it be rock and roll,
top
country.
3 concerts. Now, I will have to do this. I will have to chorus Prince. Okay? And you have to take Prince out of the equation because I will say every Prince show is the greatest concert.
Yeah.
My wife and I had last year and this year was really good years for concert, and my wife and I went to see Don Henley's 70th birthday concert in Dallas. Had to be one of my all-time favorite concerts because the guests. And I'm a huge Stevie Nicks fan. Anybody that knows me knows I've got a thing for old women like Cher, Stevie Nicks. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it is. But his 70th birthday, he had Stevie Nicks as a guest, as well as members of the Eagles, Patti Spice. I mean, it was just, it was a who's who at the concert. But Leather and Lace is one of my all-time favorite songs. And just anytime you can see a duet, do a song the way that you heard it on the radio, the way you heard it on the radio, the CD, the album. I mean, it's magical. And my wife and I had the privilege of seeing that song, Leather and Lace performed, as well as there's a couple other country songs, George Strait and Alan Jackson. We've had the privilege of seeing Murder on Music Row the way that it was meant to be heard, 3 or 4 times, as well as. It's 5 o'clock somewhere with Jimmy Buffett and Alan Jackson. But Adele, we saw Adele last October. Amazing show. Truly, her voice, she may be the greatest vocalist that I've ever heard. And I mean, and that's a tall order when you have Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Barbara Streisand, all them. But I mean, Adele's voice is hypnotic.
Live is what counts.
Do what?
Oh, the live show is what counts, because a lot of things the dynamic of a studio and doing things live is totally different.
Oh yeah. I mean, she sounds like her voice. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think her voice sounds better in concert than it does, on the CD.
Really?
My family right now are headed to Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is not like the greatest vocalist, but his show is just amazing.
He's a good
and
performer.
He puts 150 percent in that show, and there's a reason why he wins the Entertainer of the Year, because he goes in and he starts at 150% and he ends at 150%. But if I was, I've seen a lot of shows. My son and I just went and saw Lady Gaga, and she puts an unbelievable show. I mean, from start to finish, it is a show, not a concert, a show. But I will tell you, the three greatest concerts I've ever seen is Madonna's 1990 Blonde Ambition show. And again, I'm going to, exempt Prince, because
you have to.
I could go with every Prince show. I would say the only time I'd ever seen Michael Jackson was the Jackson's Victory Tour. I didn't get a chance to see the Bad Tour, and obviously, when he did the next tour, he didn't really get around, to anywhere close to here. But Michael Jackson performing live is, amazing. And the Jackson's Victory Tour at Texas Stadium in the summer of '84, July, actually I think it's July 31st, was amazing. And Eddie Van Halen was a special guest. He came on stage. Wow. And for those that didn't know about the Victory Tour, Michael Jackson did not tour for Thriller. The last portion of the Victory Tour, I think it's it may be the last 20 minutes, he would do, his Thriller solo stuff. So that was really the Thriller tour. And then the show that I was at Texas Stadium, Eddie Van Halen came in as a special guest and did the guitar riff for Beat It.
Man, that's killer.
Right. But if I was to pick a Prince show and put it in that top three, and I would put my top three being Michael Jackson, Prince, and Madonna in no specific order. There was a show that my wife and I went to in 2002. It was the One Night Alone, and it was basically the foundation for that piano and a microphone tour, because he did an all jazz set, didn't play any of the hits. And it was, I'm talking about the horns, the whole 9 yards. And then the second half of the show, it was him, the keyboard, and, doing, just acoustic stuff, with the guitar and the keyboard. That probably was up there.
Like some older acoustic songs?
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. I mean, to think about hearing Bambi acoustic.
Yeah. Because I seen him on a TV show. He was doing like some Delirious and stuff on the acoustic guitar.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But without a shadow of doubt, since we're talking about Prince, there will never be another Prince. No. He is the single greatest performer and musician, and I have studied his work. I mean, I have audio soundboard recordings on CD as well as DVDs of at least one performance from every tour since 1979. And so when he opened up for Rick James, and I'm gonna tell you right now, there will never be another Prince.
No,
never.
Yeah, that dude's he's unspeakable when it comes to music and the things he does with different instruments and the performances. It'll blow you away.
Yeah, and I mean, he was the youngest person to ever get a contract from Warner Brothers. Played all the instruments. Matter of fact, his first albums, he played all 27 instruments, mixed them down.
Yeah.
Who does that? An 18-year-old that plays all the instruments and produces and sound engineers their entire album.
Yeah, and it's tight too.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't tell it's all one dude.
Yeah, he is an absolute musical genius. There'll never be another Prince.
No. All right. It normally would end it there, but I do have just 3 more quick ones. We have
okay.
Rolling Stone versus the Beatles.
I'm sorry, what was that? You said versus the Beatles. What versus the Beatles?
Rolling Stone versus the Beatles.
Are we talking about music or performance?
Let's go with music.
Music, the Beatles. I mean, there'll never be better songwriters than Paul McCartney and John Lennon. But I will say this: I have never seen the Beatles all together, but I have seen 3 of the 4 Beatles.
Uh-huh.
McCartney several times, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. And from a performance standpoint, they're just like George Strait. They stand there and they just, play their instruments and sing.
Yeah.
Seeing the Rolling Stones, and I saw them 2 years ago on their last U.S. tour, the Zip Code tour. Mick Jagger, still at his age, he still runs around, and he is, one of the greatest frontmen, just because, again, he's one of those guys that put everything in that performance. And the band, just being as old as they are, and all the drugs and alcohol abuse, and they're still knocking it out of the park. I mean, when you go see the Rolling Stones, it's an event. It's not a concert; it's an event.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then we got The Rock versus John Cena.
From a professional wrestling standpoint, both of them are showmen. They don't have a great repertoire of wrestling moves. The Rock is a bona fide star, though.
Uh-huh.
I remember a time when, he had to use the name The Rock. It would be The Rock Dwayne Johnson or Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah.
He had to use that. He doesn't even need to use that. He's Dwayne Johnson, and he's as big as a star now as he was during the Attitude Era of the WWF as The Rock. Mm-hmm. And he is the one wrestling person that made the transition. Not even Hulk Hogan could make the transition to Hollywood like The Rock did.
Oh,
The Rock is a bona fide movie star. I would pick The Rock over John Cena.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. And we'll wrap it up there. I'll let you get on your trip, and I appreciate you taking the time out today and coming on the show. No
problem. Hey, listen, I appreciate you having me. And like I said, we go way back. Like I said, I remember when you came into the studio and played music. I hope you continue to work on music as well as all your other endeavors, with your clothing line and everything else. But it's been a real treat. It's been a treat just catching up with you because, like I said, we've known each other, for 16 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but hey, listen, I appreciate being on your show and everybody that's listening to the podcast. Keep your ears tuned to the Christopher Thompson, man. This guy is a one-man wrecking show. He's got his hands in everything. And so he's going to be the next Howard Stern of internet radio podcasting.
I don't know about that, but we'll give it a good shot.
All right.
Thanks to guys like you.
You take care.
All right, you too. Be careful, man.
All right. Bye.
All right, and that's a wrap on the interview for today. I thank you guys for sticking around. And as always, make sure you leave a review on iTunes. Also, leave a comment and a like on the Podbean if you're listening there. Follow the usual social media outlets at Mega Talks. That way you'll be able to be notified of all the guests we have coming up on the show. And also, I want you guys to send in Q&A questions. You'll see a post up there. If you follow me, just shoot me a DM, private message. Because I got one episode I've already recorded that's just tells you about me and a little bit of history, where the podcast came from, and some of the other shows and projects that I've done. Also, we got more guests coming up here. I got athletes in the work, comedians, more musicians that are going to be on the show. So hit that subscribe button for the only one, Mega Talks.